rare and balanced view on politics in today's world. Based on facts, born of rationality, common sense, and logic, providing context on today's events. This is American Perspective with Rick Thomas.
Hello, everyone, and welcome to American Perspective. I am your host, Rick. So let's see. Today was the day that they started back up with the whole no unicorns, no Willy Wonka and the Chocolate Factory, no dragons, and no kings protests today. That's right. And of course, all of that means that they have no brains either, because there are no such things as unicorns. There are no such things as dragons. There is no such thing as Willy Wonka and the Chocolate Factory. Well, at least the style that was in the movie. And there definitely are no kings in America since 1776. They they did it, folks. They did it. They did it. Oh my gosh, we haven't had a king since 1776. Yes, they have succeeded. Ugh, these freaking idiots. Oh my gosh. That's all they are, is dumbasses. That's all they are. Oh my gosh. Anyway. Yeah, luckily I didn't see any, but I've been seeing it posted all over. Of course, all the news media is like, oh yeah, there's no kings, woohoo, no kings. Yeah, I didn't drive far enough into town, apparently. There was one idiot who was holding up a sign, but I don't know what the sign said. I have no idea. But anyway, it's, I don't know what to say. Honestly, don't. I have no idea what to even remotely say to these people because, again, realistically, it's just, anyway. Yeah, speaking of small towns, like I said, small towns, man, I don't know. I must not have been in the right spot. And I drove into town to go and get hay for my horses. So, yeah. And no, I didn't get beer for them. I got them hay. They actually eat hay. Whiskey for my men and beer for my horses. Yeah, if you're a Toby Keith fan, man, let me tell you. It's a rest in peace, that guy. Whew. Anyway, all right. Let's go ahead. You know, it's stuff like this. When you see all of this stuff going on social media, and that's kind of what made me think of the title for tonight. When you see all this stuff on social media, you've got to remember, social media is a echo chamber, okay? It is not reflective of reality. It is not reflective of reality. And that's the truth. And so when you sit there and you see all of these things on social media sitting there going, oh my gosh, yes, no kings, we had 50,000 people here. Or whatever number they make up, because nobody can ever count those freaking things right. You got to remember, that's not reality. Reality is what we find within the winds. The winds. And while it may seem like we're not really going much of anywhere, we actually are going places. There are several wins that have occurred in this entire situation, and we are gaining ground, folks. We are gaining ground, and I've got a bunch of those to kind of demonstrate this all tonight. But first, I am drinking out of the Jefferson Reserve. Yes, the Jefferson Reserve bottle for tonight, and it is contained within the fantastic gift from my Whiskey Warrior P1s. This one is the It Takes Stones to Drink with Whiskey glass. There it is. And there, of course, is the requisite stones right there in the bottom. That's right. It takes stones to drink with me. And here we go. That's some good stuff right there. Good stuff. All right. Let's go ahead and get things kicked off. I love those glasses. I love those two glasses. There's the pair. There's the It Takes Stones to Drink with Whiskey, and then there's the American Perspective logo. So they're definitely one of my go-to favorites. You know, when I finally get a permanent studio, provided I actually do get a permanent studio, I'm going to have to figure out what to put on the back wall, because I've got things that say whiskey over here hanging out. I've got all kinds of American stuff, and I'm talking like, you know, red, white, and blue flags in metal. I've got We the People stuff in metal. You know, the wife and I have been running around. We've got a flag out in the ante room out here that has 1776 on it with the Betsy Ross thing. I have got so much stuff that I don't even know what the heck to put behind me. I've also got a whole bunch of metal signs that are targeted at leftist lunatics. Yeah, I got all those too. So if I ever get into a permanent studio, man, I'm gonna be at a loss. I'm gonna have to try and figure out what the heck is going on and try and figure out what to put in the background for you guys. Anyway. All right. Oh yeah, that too. My Whiskey Warrior P1s, of course, come up with the fantastic thing is, get me a light up American Perspective sign. I agree. Oh, there's an idea, my unofficial producer. Rotate them every season. Okay. Here we go. An American Perspective with neon, or in neon. Hannah's got, Hannah, well, she used to be Hickok. She's now, what is it? I can't remember her last name anymore. But anyway, Hannah's got pictures of her listeners behind her. Well, yeah, but that only works for it's only works for a female. But anyway, yeah, I got all kinds of, yes, Hannah Guile. Thank you. Now she's Hickok. She used to be Hannah Guile. Now she's Hickok. Anyway, yeah, either way, I don't know. Yeah, whatever works. But all of that being said, man, when I finally get into a permanent studio, it's definitely, I got to figure out what to put behind me, because there's just all kinds of stuff. I got glasses. I've got, obviously I had thought of whiskey bottles in the back, and having all the whiskey back there. I've thought of putting in like a library with a whole bunch of books and things, just variations of stuff. And I kind of like the idea of maybe shifting it every season, rotating them every year. Maybe when I go on, maybe if I go on a break at Christmas time, shift the background at that point. I don't know. Anyway. Yes. Thank you. Nana, I got it. All right, let's go ahead and talk about tonight's headline sponsor, of course, which is the Institute on the Constitution. The Institute on the Constitution is a 501c3 nonprofit with one singular mission, and that is to restore the constitutional republic through grassroots education from a biblical worldview. And in order to get to the Institute on the Constitution's webpage, you got to go to theamericanview.com. That's theamericanview.com. They have a three-step plan to help them restore the constitutional republic. And step number one, of course, is obviously to pray. You got to pray every day. Pray for the country, pray for your, everybody, pray for all kinds of things. You got to pray every day. And you can sign up at theamericanview.com. You can sign up to pray with these folks. They'll send you daily prayers to your email box to pray with them. Second step is you got to study. People ask, what do you got to study? Well, you need to study the Constitution. You need to study our history. You need to study where this country came from, because a lot of that is being missed today. Look, I got to tell you, there was a comment about the young people who are attending these BS protests today. They are wayward youth. And one way that we can help get them back on track is, of course, to pass down generations of knowledge from one to the next. Now, I'm attempting to do that here in this format, but you can help too. And you can help by studying. And if you go to the study tab at theamericanview.com, you can start by taking their free Constitution course right here. Free U.S. Constitution course. All you have to do is sign up. You enter your name, first and last, and your email address, and then click Get Lesson 1 free. It's 100% free. Don't worry about that. They say Get Lesson 1 free, but it's not just Lesson 1. It's all of them. It's all 12 lessons. It's 100% free. You'll send them to your email inbox. They're about 15 to 20 minutes or 15 to 20 minutes long per lesson. See, I'm getting ahead of myself here. And by the way, the course is nationally recognized. And once you've gone through that free course, then you can also take a look at some of their other courses that they have, and look at some of their in-person classes too. Now, wouldn't it be kind of nice to host an in-person class? Well, that's part of the ACT portion. You can become a member. You can explore the live classes and go there. You can also become an instructor for the Institute on the Constitution and actually put into practice all of those things that you just learned about this wonderful country that we call home and its founding documents and the nation. And you can go and check out this video right over here. It's on your left-hand side of your screen. It says how to become an IOTC instructor, and it'll take you through everything that you need. And then you can also check out the 5 tips for a successful class. That would give you an option as well. And then you can go and purchase the instructor kit right here. And there's a link. You can head on over to the shop too, by the way. You can head on over to the shop and check out all of their course material, educational resources, apparel, and so on and so forth. My personal favorite is right above my head, right up here. Right up here, right above my head. Known as the Legacy Library. I call it the Leather Legacy Library. And I got to tell you, I would love to have all of these items. But my most favorite item is right here in my hot little hands. That comes out of the Legacy Library. It is known as the Saddleback, a leather-bound U.S. Constitution. Copy of the United States Constitution in a pocket size with a nice, beautiful leather cover over the top of it. And I got to tell you, this has got, according to my Whiskey Warrior P1's sexy rounded corners. Let's take a closer look at this thing. It's got 1/8 of an inch of Saddleback leather wrapped around pages that are water and tear resistant. No cheap glue here, folks. It is stitched all the way through. The leather and the pages contained within, and according to my Whiskey Warrior P1 3 Chevy, each leather book has stitching strong enough to hang a framed copy of the U.S. Constitution on the wall of my aforementioned, hopefully sometime in the future, new studio. But anyway, and by the way, according to G, another Whiskey Warrior, the stitching is cured with the essence of liberal, I like to call them leftist, tears. There it is. All right. It has got a 100-year warranty against materials and manufacturing defects, such that if there is a problem with this item in that 100-year time frame, you can send it back to the manufacturer. They will either fix it or replace it for free. It is buddy tested, buddy approved, Billy tasted, Billy approved, and my youngest whiskey warrior has confirmed the information contained within will help you to study for your civics badge in scouting as well as your civics exam. And not only that, but also can help you with your naturalization test as well. Become an American. Wouldn't that be a great gift? You know somebody who is taking the naturalization test? Man, give them one of these. It is a family heirloom that you could hand down from generation to generation. Remember what I was just talking about in terms of passing down all the wonderful information that we have? Well, this could be one of them. Head on over to theamericanview.com. Check out their shop. Go to the Legacy Library and pick one of these up today. Also, don't forget to check out the rest of the Institute on the Constitution's offerings and products over there while you're there. And yeah, so do I, 3 Chevy. I wish I had a 100-year warranty against materials and manufacturing defects. Anyway, head on over to theamericanview.com to get the Institute on the Constitution, and I thank them for being a sponsor of this program. It is fantastic. All right. So, let's talk. So, the idiots, and yes, they are idiots. They're running around today. They are running around and marching and doing all kinds of protests to protest a supposed king, even though we have never had a king since 1776. Actually, we've never had a king since becoming a United States country, all our own. We've never had a king. We're not having it now. Believe it or not, they sit there and they talk about how Trump is a king. Trump is nowhere near a king. You want to see a king? You want to see a dictator? You want to see somebody who has treated people absolutely horribly? Yeah, you got to go and look at people like, I don't know, Mao Zedong. You got to look at people like Pol Pot. You got to look at people like, Muammar Gaddafi. You got to look at people like the Iranian mullahs. And you have to look at people like Nicolas Maduro. Now, wait a minute. Nicolas Maduro is sitting in an American jail right now. Well, let me explain something to you. Something fantastic happened today. On a day where idiots are running around trying to say that Trump is a dictator, Trump is a, authoritarian regimist or whatever. Well, there was an individual who actually experienced, as well as the rest of the Venezuelan people, experienced what happens when you have a authoritarian dictator in charge. That is none other than future Nobel Peace Prize winner. She actually won it in 2024. And Venezuelan opposition leader Maria Corina Machado. Her party, the Vente Venezuela party, had to shut down its Caracas headquarters back in 2024. And why? Well, that's because of the fact that Nicolas Maduro and his thugs, well, they didn't hear from the American people about the No Kings message, and they went after her. And by the way, she actually won the popular vote and would have likely become Venezuela's next president back in 2024, but Maduro himself banned her from running. She threw her support behind Edmundo Gonzalez and managed to convince most of her voters to do the same. Maduro stole the election. He received very little of the real vote, or at least what was actually counted, prior to him shutting down the count, taking it over and saying, nope, I won. Yeah. the intimidation tactics and so on and so forth that the regime was using, the Maduro regime was using against voters and so on and so forth. Well, that led to the opposition leaders fleeing the country or going into hiding like Machado did. Well, today, a huge crowd gathered in Venezuela, in Caracas. And for the first time in well over a year and a half, the Vente Venezuela political party headquarters office reopened today. Machado, who is still in hiding because of the existing regime still trying to arrest her for trumped up, pardon the pun, trumped up charges. Machado posted a video online saying, "Long live Venezuela. This is how our national headquarters stands, ready to open its doors once again to all Venezuelans." Folks, this is a historic occasion, and it happens on the same day that these morons are running around saying, no kings in America, no kings, even though we haven't had one since 1776. We have never had one in the American country since we became a country. This is where the idiots, the droogs, the morons, they're all coming from it. And, anyway. So, there you go. Anyway. All righty. Well, I did skip. I didn't mean, I wasn't meaning necessarily to skip, but I had to get that out because, I mean, let's be honest, that was dealing with all the morons and the droogs and the idiots. So let's go back and get to our wonderful, I was so quick on the trigger. Some people didn't get the idiot that was in the chat. Didn't even see what he said. Anyway, he's gone for now. Anyway. All right. We'll head back to this segment and let's go ahead and get this kicked off. That's right, on this day in American history. And of course, we're on this day in American history. We read from the American Patriots Almanac, written by William J. Bennett and John T.E. Cribb, chock full of all kinds of, no, they can. I just did it, is T. Chock full of all kinds of interesting factoids and information. And tonight, March 28th, we're going to be talking about American ships that are abroad. That went abroad back in the 1800s. On March 28th, 1800, the frigate USS Essex became the first American warship to round Africa's Cape of Good Hope as it sailed on its mission to escort merchant ships returning from the Dutch East Indies. Dutch East Indies. God, I swear, sometimes I just can't speak. Anyway, since the early days of the Republic, American vessels have been venturing across the seven seas. In 1819, the SS Savannah made its first transatlantic crossing by a steam-powered ship. Rigged with sails, the Savannah used an auxiliary steam engine to turn paddle wheels part of the way. As it approached the Irish coast with smoke billowing from its stack, a rescue ship rushed out to meet it, assuming it was on fire. That's interesting. Between 1826 and 1830, the sloop of war USS Vincennes became the first American warship to circumnavigate the globe, leaving New York City, traveling west by Cape Horn and the Cape of Good Hope. In 1957, the Coast Guard cutters Spar, Storis, and Bramble became the first American ships to circumnavigate the North American continent, traveling through the elusive Northwest Passage along the way. In 1958, the submarine USS Nautilus became the first vessel to cross the North Pole. As it sailed beneath the Arctic ice pack, it broadcast its famous message, Nautilus 90 North. In 1960, the USS Triton became the first submarine to make a submerged circumnavigation of the globe, traveling 41,500 miles in 84 days. The Triton carried a plaque bearing an image reminiscent of Ferdinand Magellan's vessel and the model Ave Nobilis de Iterum Factum Est, which is Hail Noble Captain, it is done again in Latin. And that is today's On This Day in American history. You guys thought I forgot. I didn't forget. I just wanted to address the dumbasses who were protesting no kings when there's no kings. There's not a single king within 100 miles of the United States. Anyway. All right. Well, let's talk about our wins, shall we? And I'm not talking about just wins here in America. I'm even talking about wins across the globe. One of the biggest wins happened actually earlier this week, and I haven't really even been talking about it or even remotely ready to talk about it because we did have some other things that I wanted to get clear of first. But there was a win on March 26th, which would have been 2 days ago, from the International Olympic Committee. They have finally reached a decision with regards to trans athletes. Trans women from this day forward will not be allowed to compete against women in the games, and they will be testing for genetics. So, this in particular, okay, this is a good thing. And by trans women, see, some people have problems figuring out what is a trans woman. I mean, not figuring out what is a trans woman, but is a trans woman male or female? Is a trans man male or female? It's really pretty simple. If you say trans women, that means male. Okay? If you say trans man, that means female. Whenever the word trans shows up, it's the opposite of whatever follows the word trans to understand kind of where they're at. Well, here's the thing. The committee finally has decided that they are going to use genetics in order to confirm whether or not a person is considered male or female, and then put them into the appropriate sex-specific category. It's literally taken years to get somebody in the position to actually say this and make this a priority, willing to grant the obvious fact that biological men competing against women is clearly not fair. And even now, there are still people who are eager to basically say, you know what? We are not going to do this, that trans women are women. They're not. Trans women don't have any scientific advantage or biological advantage. They do. And so on and so forth. I mean, this is a no-brainer here, people. It literally is a no-brainer. And so the IOTC conducted a scientific review last November, which concluded that trans athletes retain advantages from having been born male, regardless of how they identify. And from this point on, today's decision basically, this isn't today's decision. This was 2 days ago. It was a foregone conclusion. So what they're going to do now is they're going to require genetic testing. So what they're going to do is they're going to swab your cheek and they're going to check your chromosomes. If you are an XX, you go into one category. If you are an XY, you go into another category or a different category, regardless of whether or not you say you are a woman or a man. So there you go. It's over. We've won. We've won the fight here on the international stage. So, yeah. There you go. There you go. And you'll recall, by the way, the boxer, and I'm trying to remember, at the Paris Olympics back in 2024, where it was an Italian female boxer who was forced to abandon her bout after only 46 seconds with the Algerian male opponent. So, yeah. So there you go. And by the way, the male opponent, if he had been genetically tested at that point, would have come back as male, regardless of whether or not he was talked about in terms of his medical. Supposedly he had a medical defect where he was actually both genders for whatever, some reason. But anyway. Yep. So there we go. They're done. It's over with. Thank you, IOC, for actually making the proper and correct decision. Well, there are some leftists out there, and not that I necessarily think that, like, Bob Costas, for an example, is a leftist, but let's just say it took him quite a while to actually get or have the cojones to actually talk about it. And he did so on CNN. Let's go ahead and take a quick listen to what Bob Costas has to say on the subject.
You were the face of the Olympics for so many years. This news today about the IOC basically banning trans athletes, that there's going to be a genetic test.
Yeah.
Your reaction to that and this very complicated issue?
Give me enough time to address this so I'm not misunderstood. There are people who use this issue cynically for political purposes, and they're demonizing people who happen to be trans, who should be treated with respect and dignity and understanding. However, common sense is not transphobic. There's a reason why the high school champions don't compete with the college champions. There is a reason why no trans man who was once a woman and has become a man has ever competed successfully with men in the Olympics. If Caitlin Clark could play in the NBA, everybody would applaud it. That'd be an incredible thing. But if the last guy on the bench of an NBA team went to the WNBA and started averaging 40 points a game, everyone would know that is BS. There's a reason why Sugar Ray Leonard, who was a contemporary of Mike Tyson, didn't fight Mike Tyson. They were in different weight classes. There is a reason why there are men's and women's sports, and why Title IX was one of the truly progressive pieces of legislation in the best sense of the word progressive under the Nixon administration. It changed everything. I had a sister who never played a single organized sport. One generation later, 2 children of my own. My daughter played just about as many organized sports as my son. That's a great thing. It doesn't make any sense to have a swimmer who was the 472nd ranked swimmer when he was a man at Penn, either winning or coming close to winning against women a year and a half after transitioning. If that's what the person wants to do, that person should be treated with dignity and respect. But there ought to be common sense, and common sense is not transphobic.
And this policy is common sense.
Yes, this policy, the way Kirsty Coventry laid it out from Lausanne in the clip that you played is exactly correct.
And
well, I mean, at least somebody gets it. Somebody gets it. You know, it's kind of interesting when you're a common sense sort of person, and you see this stuff ahead of time. Well, anyway, you know, all kinds of fathers should absolutely be rejoicing in this particular sense, because let's just be real. I know my daughter is a very strong woman. I know my daughter is a competitor. But I also know that if my daughter were to go up against another, let's say, boy, and keep in mind, I mean, my daughter's an adult now, but even if she were to go up against like a 14 or 15-year-old in soccer or some other sport, she probably wouldn't do very well. Now, she may be able to win a few times, but in the long run, the boy would outclass her. The teenage boy would outclass her fairly quickly. And it's not anything against her. It has nothing to do with her or how she is able to function or anything else. It has nothing to do with her skill set. It has nothing to do with any of her strength or speed or agility, other than the fact that when you compare her strength, speed, and agility to a male counterpart, even a younger male counterpart, there are going to be times where she is going to be outclassed. That is just the nature of biology. So again, to kind of emphasize Bob Costas's point, this is not trying to take away the dignity or the ability of an individual. If you want to live your life as a woman, live your life as a woman. If you're male, go for it. There's no law against it, sure. But you need to understand that you will not necessarily be welcomed in places like sports where you will clearly outcompete everyone. And this is true everywhere. I mean, even in the battle of the sexes with Billie Jean King, she was going up against the only willing participant. If she'd have gone up against like the top contender, she would have gotten just totally smashed. And she was good. Same thing with Venus Williams, I believe, went up against a mid-level male competitor in tennis. Lost all 6 sets straight. It's been shown multiple times that this is the case. So good on the IOC for doing what is right and proper for this. But folks, that's a win. That's a win for common sense. It's a win for logic. It's a win for reason. And it's a win against the leftist lunatics who sit here and want to try and say, oh, no, a man is just the same, exact same as a woman. Yeah. No, they're not. Guarantee it. They're not. Anyway. Now, even though Bob Costas kind of popped up and says, hey, now keep in mind, I mean, he's the broadcaster who's been covering the Olympics for, 10, 12 years now. Even though he came out and said this, there have been some critics. And to be honest with you, I tend to agree, because this kind of falls into that realm of what we're seeing all over the place in terms of the grifter mentality. People like Candace Owens. People like Megyn Kelly, people like Tucker Carlson, who jumped on the bandwagon in terms of politics for them, but jumped on the bandwagon with the MAGA crowd with the MAGA crowd. And, all of a sudden they seem to have flipped like an entire 180. And we can't quite figure out why. Well, that's because they're grifters. Now, I'm not calling Bob Costas a grifter, but it is questionable as to why he's all of a sudden coming out for this today. Some people call this out. People like Riley Gaines. Riley Gaines is like, cool. Hey, it's cool that he's actually on this. But why couldn't he have said it years ago? Like before men were actually awarded gold medals for punching women in the face in Olympics boxing. Some other people are like, hey, why couldn't he have said this like a year ago, 2 years ago, 5 years ago? Yeah. So, yeah. And now what's happening is, of course, he is reportedly taking some heat from Democrats because, of course, remember, if you're a Democrat, a leftist lunatic, like those at the No Kings protests today, or the No Unicorns, or the No, I don't know, whatever you want to call them, No Brains protests. There we go. That'll cover everything. The No Brains protests today. They are, of course, all calling out that this is hate speech, that what he said is a bunch of hate speech. So, yeah. And he's taking some flack on the social media for it. Some people calling it hate speech. Others are calling it transphobia, misogyny, whatever. I'm tired of it. Kiss my butt. Kiss my lily white one. Anyway. Wanted to bring that to your attention because that is definitely a win. Because we're dealing with, we got to keep in mind, these kinds of wins may not be extremely public, but we got to take them when we can get them. We do. We got to take them when we can get them. All right. Well, I have some sad news to report. Unfortunately, there was around a dozen U.S. service members. This is on the international desk. There's about a dozen U.S. service members who were injured during a strike on the Prince Sultan Air Base in Saudi Arabia. Yes, we have air bases in places like Saudi Arabia, UAE, Qatar, so on and so forth. We have them there because of the fact that we are essentially trying to work at the time with a Middle East that is very unstable. So the idea was to put our forces there to keep some stability within the region. Well, unfortunately, Iran struck the Saudi Arabian base. Now, keep in mind, the Saudis, UAE, Qatar, they have all taken a major brunt from the Iranians during this time. And one thing that you have to keep in mind, too, is that these folks, they're our partners. They're not necessarily our, essentially, sorry, I got distracted here by something in the thread. But anyway, they're sitting here and they're not fighting us anymore on this whole thing with Iran. They're no longer blocking us from Iran. And that, honestly, is a bit of a win. It's a win because here's a report that came out that the UAE has actually decided to make a big military move to help clear the Strait of Hormuz as pressure on Iran starts stepping up. See, this is a big win here, folks. I don't think you realize how big of a win this is. So, yeah. Iran has actually hit the UAE with more attacks than Israel itself since the start of Operation Epic Fury, which is absolutely nuts. They apparently thought that they would make the UAE push the U.S. to stop the U.S.'s action. Instead, it's convinced the UAE that Iran does need to be dealt with. So they are no longer a threat. So the UAE Minister of State, Lana Nussbaum, told Fox's Brent Baer, not only weren't where they are not backing off, but they would be doubling down. Let's go ahead and take a listen to what she has to say.
Do you think the calls for the Gulf Arab allies, including the UAE, to get involved kinetically in the war are fair?
The UAE has fought side by side with the United States in over 6 coalitions in our history. We have shared values, we have shared history with the United States, we have interoperability with the United States. They are a clear partner to us in regional security, and we intend to double down on that. Today, we are looking at a threat to not only our region, but to the international community at large that needs to be stopped in whatever way possible. The UAE is always for a diplomatic off-ramp at the end of that. We need to use diplomacy, but we need to use diplomacy when Iran understands that its behavior as a rogue actor is not acceptable neither to the region nor to the international community.
So there you go. There you go. They are stepping up. And this is a win. This is a win, folks. This is an actual win for the country. And by that, I mean the country not only of the UAE, but also the country of the United States. See, many people think that the UAE and some of these other Arab allies of ours are, using us. And if they are, great. I mean, okay, that's fine. But you also need to understand that this demonstrates that Iran, the Iranian mullahs, they weren't very favored by these other Arab nations. The other Arab nations sort of tolerated them. Well, now things have pushed to the point where, hey, you know what? We're done. We're done with this. Now, you think that this could have been brought on if it weren't for Trump, his work toward the Abraham Accords? Do you honestly believe that if Joe Biden, who basically torpedoed the Abraham Accords at one point, do you honestly think that Biden would have been able to bring this kind of thing around? No, couldn't have. So, yeah. Anyway, United Arab Emirates has told Washington and other Western allies that it would participate in the multinational maritime task force intended to reopen the Strait of Hormuz, according to the Financial Times reporting yesterday. So, there you go. And by the way, Abu Dhabi is reportedly going to deploy its own Navy as part of the task force, which is exactly what the U.S. has been asking for, is for others to help step up and take some of the escort duty and so on and so forth to get the oil, the 20% of the world's oil that is traveling through the Strait of Hormuz that isn't actually getting through right now because of the fact that you have the Iranian regime attempting to close it down. Now, keep in mind, don't forget the UAE actually has a pipeline that can circumvent the Strait of Hormuz, but it can't pump as much as the strait can carry. And the Iranians themselves have been hitting the port of Fujairah? I don't know. Fujairah. However that's pronounced. They've been hitting them, hitting that port to kind of hurt them. So, anyway. So there you go. We'll see what else is going to happen. But, yeah. But we'll have to see what's going to happen here. And yes, the oil pipeline can't pump can't transport other items that are not oil Thank you, 3 Chevy, for that observation. So we definitely need to get the Strait of Hormuz opened again. All right, before we move on, I need to get to a break. And let's go ahead and take a look here. Yes. So, today's sponsor, all right, is Chicago Steak Company, and they're giving away free eight free steak burgers on every order. And this is by using the code 8burgers. Now, I believe, based on the way this is written, that is the word 8, E-I-G-H-T, 8 burgers for the code to get those free 8 steak burgers. Folks, if you've never had a steak burger versus just regular hamburger, trust me, there is a total difference. And if you go to Chicago Steak Company, there is even a step. Okay. Wow. That's kind of funny how it dropped in the middle of my steak burger point. Okay, let's start this all back over again. Hopefully this is not, it was a obvious internet drop, internet glitch. So let's see. Let's take a look at this. All right, so again, Chicago Steak Company. If you've never had steak burger, like ground up steak, all right, this is incredible, all right? So, think about the last time that you bought burgers at the grocery store. You stood there staring at the wall of plastic wrapped ground beef. Again, there is a total difference between ground beef and ground steak, all right? I'm just going to say it. All right? So you've got a wall of ground beef, plastic wrapped ground beef, trying to figure out which one isn't going to turn into a hockey puck on the grill. And maybe you grab the most expensive organic pack, and maybe you went cheap. Either way, you get home, you fire up the grill, you watch them shrink to half of their size, dry in the middle, falling apart through the grates. Well, the Chicago Steak Company, they figured out a better way. They make half-pound steak burgers from USDA prime beef, hand-formed from premium cuts of beef, and ship them directly to your door on dry ice. These hold together on the grill. They stay juicy, and they actually taste like a steak. Look, here's the deal, okay? You spend $189 or more on any of the steaks that you want, and then you use the code 8burgers, E-I-G-H-T, burgers, and they will add 8 free steak burgers, plus a bottle of steak seasoning, plus free shipping to your order. That's $200 in free extras on top of whatever it was that you ordered, okay? Now, Chicago Steak has 15,000 5-star reviews. These people really know what they're doing. So head on over to mychicagosteak.com. That's mychicagosteak.com/rumble. mychicagosteak.com/rumble. And use the code 8burgers. That's E-I-G-H-T burgers. Spell the number 8 out. E-I-G-H-T burgers in the code box at mychicagosteak.com/rumble. Now there's a link right here in the code. Whoops. Yeah, you can't see my hand. It's right over here. There we go. I got to get on the right side of the screen. But it's right there. Click that QR code, man. Let me tell you. Or head off to mychicagosteak.com/rumble and use the code 8, E-I-G-H-T, burgers. And you'll be able to get those 8 burgers, $200 in free extras. Those 8 burgers, bottle of steak seasoning, as well as free shipping on your order. When you spend $189 or more on any of the other steaks and products that you want, okay? Use the code 8burgers at mychicagosteak.com/rumble, and you'll get that $200 in free extras on top of whatever you ordered. 15,000 5-star reviews? Seriously? You can't go wrong here, okay? You cannot go wrong. mychicagosteak.com/rumble using the code 8, EIGHT, 8burgers. And there's a link in the description. Get them now before they're gone. All right, I gave them a little extra because, well, we lost a little bit. Anyway, all right, well, you know, the Senate Democrats, they lie. They always lie. They lie so much, it's not even funny. They lie, they lie, they lie, they lie, they lie, they lie. I mean, why anybody would vote for these idiots is beyond me, because every single one of them lies, cheats, steals, is corrupt, etc. Well, here's the latest lie. So Chuck Schumer and the Democrats, they all talk about the 80-20 issue of supporting voter ID. Well, here not too long ago, there was an amendment proposed by the Republicans. And this is how they attempted to try and catch the Democrats in this. There was an amendment proposed in the Senate that basically said, hey, we want to get all of the Senate Democrats on record saying that they supported voter ID. And this was an amendment. They wanted to get everybody who is a Democrat on record, to say that they support voter ID. And, well, unfortunately, the Democrats blocked that amendment. So the amendment was from Senator John Husted from Ohio, a Republican. He meant to put them on record for saying that they support voter ID. And Schumer, of course, said ahead of the vote on that amendment, that Republicans are once again wasting time on voter suppression. Even though just a little while before that, when being asked by CNN's Caitlin Collins on whether or not he would support a clean voter ID bill, the senator, basically Senator Schumer, of course, said Democrats support voter ID in a press call. And he even claimed that they included it, and it was included in their freedom to vote legislation years ago. I mean, even Cory Booker is saying, hey, you know what? New Jersey has voter ID laws. I've got to show my driver's license in order to vote. But yet these Democrats are still holding back on the Save America Act. So, yeah, they don't seem to get it. The Democrats don't seem to get it. So Senate Majority Leader John Thune said that is one on which the Democrats have said, Senator Schumer himself, that we're not opposed to voter ID. So the Majority Leader Thune said, well, let's test that proposition. Let's actually have a vote on it and see where the Democrats are. Well, yeah, they didn't. Obviously, they voted against it. So according to the Democrats, the Senate Democrats, they've argued that while they support identification to vote, the Save America Act goes far beyond that requirement. Schumer and the others have likened the broader bill to like Jim Crow era segregationist laws of the Deep South. I still have yet to figure out how that works. Or they're saying that it would disenfranchise voters. Again, I still can't quite figure out how that works, because if you don't have the documents, in your hot little hands, all you have to do is sign a statement under penalty of perjury, an attestation that basically says, hey, I am an American citizen, and then put the onus on the government to prove that you're not a citizen. So, yeah. Anyway, this is just ridiculous. Now, here's the thing, though, folks. Requiring identification for voting is already a practice at the state level. That's right. 36 states. 36 states have already got requiring identification in order to vote a matter of state law. Now, of those 36, reportedly 23 require a photo ID. Oh my gosh. Really? Wow. A photo ID? Holy crap. And of the 13 that are left, they accept a different form of identification. For an example, a bank statement. 9 of those states have Democratic senators. Okay. Now, keep in mind, okay, this is an 80-20 issue again, folks. 80-20. 71% of Democrat voters support showing government-issued photo ID to vote. 71%. 89% of Republicans, which basically means that 83% of all Americans say that they want voter ID to vote. I mean, this is ridiculous. They keep pushing this. They keep pushing this. Well, guess what? There was a court case that actually may push this thing for the SAVE Act, proving once again that the SAVE Act actually does make sense. So 7 years ago, the case started. Republicans in North Carolina had a case that started, and they've been waiting for those 7 years. They've been waiting because North Carolina passed a photo voter ID law 7 years ago, maybe a little bit longer, and they got challenged immediately over it. Liberal rights voting groups, the state NAACP, they all jumped on. And they all said, hey, this voter ID law in North Carolina, yeah, you know, that's a violation of the 14th Amendment, the 15th Amendment, Voting Rights Act, so on and so forth. An Obama-appointed judge, U.S. District Judge Loretta Briggs, has finally issued her ruling on this case. And she has upheld North Carolina's photo voter ID law in a sweeping 134-page ruling this past Thursday. The ruling will keep this law in place heading into the 2026 midterms. So in 2018, 55% of the North Carolina voters approved a constitutional amendment that required photo ID at the polls. The legislature then passed it, and it became law. The bill is very thorough and accounts for every single silly excuse that Democrats make against voter ID. For an example, free photo IDs are available at county elections offices in the DMV. Acceptable forms include a driver's license, military ID, or a U.S. passport. Voters without ID can fill out an exception form for a provisional ballot or bring their ID in before certification. Now, the accommodations in this are completely extensive. This sort of reminds me a little bit of the Save America Act. Now, keep in mind, the Democrats have constantly said, no, this is discriminatory against people of color and women. And there's nothing discriminatory against this. There really isn't. And this entire case, which took 7 years to complete, 7 years to complete. And these things about it being discriminatory, breaking the 14th, the 15th, the Voting Rights Act, all of these things, yeah, being brought by liberal voting rights groups, the state NAACP, so on and so forth. Well, according to this ruling, they've now been told, yeah, you failed to prove that any of that is true. Yeah. So, yeah. This is finally an end for North Carolina. Now, keep in mind, okay, she emphasized in her 134-page decision that North Carolina has had a history of extensive official discrimination against African Americans that was undisputed by either of the parties in the case. The judge said that she found evidence that the voter ID law served to disenfranchise Black and Latino voters, but that the precedents set by higher courts meant that the evidence was not enough to invalidate the law. So she still kind of kept with her leftist roots until she passed it. Yeah. Now, the timing of this is just absolutely impeccable. I got to tell you, because of the conversations, the debate that are going on in the Save ID Act. So now we have a 37th state that basically is saying, yes, we use photo ID or some form of ID in order to allow people to vote. Yeah. Why not? I don't know if anybody has done any kind of math. So I'm just going to do something real simple for you. You know that 2/3 that it would take, or sorry, 3/4 that it would take for states to pass a constitutional amendment? Yeah, we're approaching that level of voter ID laws within the states. We're approaching that. We're getting there. We're getting close, folks. Getting close. With 37 of the states, 37 out of 50. I don't know about y'all, but 37 out of 50, maybe my unofficial producer and math whiz can come in and let me know real quick while they're talking about burgers. White Castle burgers in particular, but maybe my unofficial producer can do a really quick 37 divided by 50 and tell me what that comes up with, whether that's a 0.75. Oh, see, 74%. So we are real close to that 3/4 mark, that 3/4 threshold. Thank you, Nana. That 3/4 threshold. Yeah, we're real close to it. All right. Well, that's definitely a win, and we're making progress. Because, again, we're making progress. It's moving forward. It's moving the ball forward down the field. Sorry for the American football reference, but that's pretty much what it is. You got 10 yards, going in, 10 yards, boom, 10 yards. That's all you got to do is just get 10 yards. And if you keep fighting and gaining those 10 yards in 4 downs, you'll be able to keep moving the ball forward. Now, all of that being said, we've got an interesting from the top rope. Yes, this is a wrestling reference. From the top rope with a big, large elbow, we have a country called the Republic of Somaliland. Republic of Somaliland. is coming in from the top rope to encourage the United States government to, send Ilhan Omar back. Oh, yes, I know. It's kind of weird. But apparently, the Republic of Somaliland has an account on X. Now, let's just be honest. I mean, if it is the real account, great. If it's not, well, it's still pretty funny. So, I don't know if anybody caught this, but Vice President J.D. Vance confirmed on Benny Johnson's show that apparently there is solid evidence that Ilhan Omar committed immigration fraud. He actually stated, quote, "We actually think that Ilhan Omar definitely committed immigration fraud against the United States of America." Now, should these claims come true, okay? Should these claims come true, I am just amazed that of all this. Well, they put it out in the public. The Republic of Somaliland put it out into the public on X. And, here's, I think, the start with J.D. Vance here. Let's take a listen. Come on.
Vowing to coordinate between all branches to end this nonsense is the new plan. Vance sat down for an interview with Benny Johnson, spoke about Somali fraud, spoke about the queen of the Somali fraudsters, our friend Ilhan Omar. Take a listen.
Ilhan Omar definitely committed immigration fraud against the United States of America. She has been at the center of a lot of the worst fraudsters in the Somalian community.
Yeah, she married her brother to get him in, which means they both should go back. Benny Johnson is with us.
All right, so I'm not going to take this to the full conclusion that Benny Johnson was there, but on the thing, but kind of interesting that was the case. Well, apparently the Republic of Somaliland actually pulled up some information, and they claim that the information that they are providing was available, but that the Obama Justice Department refused to actually investigate. And they brought receipts. Yeah. They claim that her initial name was, her initial last name was Elmi. 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 Her brother was named Elmi. Her father was named Elmi. Was also known by a different name known as Nur Omar. So they've brought the receipts. Here's the marriage license application that they posted in the X account that basically points out that Ilhan Omar and reportedly her brother Ahmed got married. And keep in mind, over in the Somali community, stuff like this happens all the time. Anyway, they also provided a birth certificate. This is a marriage license. My bad. So this was the marriage certificate. Yeah. Now, they claim that the groom and the bride were brother and sister. Yeah. And keep in mind, if you lie on your naturalization records, that is cause to get deported. They're actually, the Republic of Somaliland is actually asking, hey, if you're going to extradite her, send her back. We want her to be here and put on trial for crimes here. in the Republic of Somaliland. Yeah. Yep. So, this is going to be quite interesting as this moves forward. Which, by the way, yeah, he also, Vance, of course, also connected Omar not only to this immigration fraud, but also the fraudulent networks that have been pulling taxpayer dollars away from places like Minnesota. So, yeah. And the Republic of Somaliland, just for transparency here, the Republic of Somaliland wants independence from Somalia precisely because of the sort of violence and corruption that the people who control Somalia and have moved to the USA from Somalia perpetrate. Now, they're looking for the United States to recognize the Republic of Somaliland as a separate country. And so they're looking for this. Now, they argue that they're historically and politically that their independence from Somalia itself is legitimate. And they are sweetening the deal by saying, hey, we'll give the United States a military base, access to a strategic port, also access to critical minerals. So it's possible that Trump may actually take them up on this. In fact, if you go to X, the Republic of Somaliland actually points this out. Different presidents throughout history who have recognized foreign countries moving forward. So anyway. Okay. So before I move on to my next topic, I want to take another quick break and I want to talk to you about the Rumble wallet. So here's a little inside scoop that many creators are talking about behind the scenes here. It's actually one of the reasons that I'm using Rumble. They make it easy for creators like us to actually earn money on the platform. Not unlike YouTube or Facebook or even X, how you have to hit like a certain number of subscribers and users and so on and so forth. Rumble doesn't, Rumble doesn't generally do that. And Rumble has the ability to super chat. And now Rumble has even taken it one step further because they've made a way to super chat creators so that they get paid immediately and without any of the fees that YouTube or Twitch would take up, because they take up to 50% of fees when you tip creators. Now, this method that Rumble has takes zero. That's right. The platform, Rumble, takes zero fees when you use the Rumble wallet. I keep nearly 100% of what you send me. You can super chat using Bitcoin, Tether US dollars, or even Tether Gold, stable coins. The tip will show up directly in the chat, of course, which I'll do my best to make sure that I read. You guys know this. I do this all the time. All you need to do is download the Rumble wallet on the App Store and send the tips to your favorite creators. Go to wallet.rumble.com. That's wallet, WALLET.rumble.com, or download the app directly from the app stores to find out more information about Rumble Wallet. Seriously, what an amazing way for us to get rid of the middleman and help the creator economy, help creators like me. Go to wallet.rumble.com or download Rumble Wallet from the app directly. And this is a shout out, or download the app directly from the app stores, I should say. Once again, go to wallet, WALLET.rumble.com, or download the app directly from the app stores. That's the Rumble Wallet. And I got to give a shout out to Rumble for making this disruptive technology within the creator space. All right. So there was a story or it's a story, I guess, or article in the Epic Times regarding Epic Health. In the Epic Health section, I should say, regarding your health. And I think I figured out, due to this article, I figured out what's happened to the leftist brains. See, the leftists have lost their ever-loving minds. And I've been trying to figure out when, all of a sudden, in the last 10 or 15 years, 10 more than likely, where all these people, they just got lost. They somehow, I don't know if they had like a brain-eating amoeba or whatever, but these leftists who are out there, they all went nuts, seemingly at the exact same time. Well, let me explain to you what this particular study has stated. Now, keep in mind, we all complain. Everybody complains. Nobody's life is perfect. Nobody's life is always the way that you want it to go. But there's a catch. And apparently, according to this study, what feels harmless or normal can quietly take a toll. Now, this doesn't mean that you need to stop complaining. However, I've noticed that leftists, in particular, and a few others that I've noticed, that consistently complain, seem to have a bit of a problem. Now, keep in mind that complaining, even just for a short period of time, can hardwire a habit that shapes the way that we actually think, perceive, and respond to the situations that we encounter during our lives. And complaining itself, even just for a small bit, isn't harmless, according to this study. Habitual complaining subtly changes the way that we perceive the world. Tension builds, irritability rises, moods dip, and even minor problems can start to feel overwhelming. Now, people caught in this cycle of constantly complaining, leftists, people caught in this cycle often experience anger, anxiety, and a persistent focus on what they perceive as wrong. Psychologists refer to this pattern as a rumination, repeatedly dwelling on negative experiences. What do you think leftists do all the time? That's all they do. That's all they do. Oh my gosh, rumination and habitual complaining reinforce one another, locking attention on perceived problems and amplifying the negativity in their lives. More than a fleeting feeling, research has found that repeatedly focusing on negative experiences strengthens neural pathways, making it harder to actually regulate your emotions and respond in a constructive fashion. For an example, there was a study that was published in the Journal of Personality and Social Psychology found that participants who ruminated on anger-inducing events experienced stronger and longer-lasting anger, more negative thoughts, and heightened stress responses. You sit here and you wonder why these idiots seem to think that words are violence? I wonder. In contrast, participants who used what's called reappraisal, which is reinterpreting the situation in a more neutral fashion, were better able to regulate their emotions. I found the answer. That's why leftists are so damn miserable. They're stuck in this rumination and habitual complaining cycle. They can't get out of it. They have done it for so long, over the course of the last 10 years. They've done it for so long, they have actually destroyed their brains in terms of how they think. This is why these idiots are running around saying that Donald Trump is a king. Donald Trump is a king and a dictator and a fascist and a Nazi and a racist and a pedophile and all these other things, because of the fact that these people, through their specific habits, have created an environment where where they have essentially rotted their own brains and made it nearly impossible for any of them to find something positive in life. Yeah. See, what they found through these functional MRI studies is that research basically shows that repetitive focus on problems can alter the way the brain processes information. And they demonstrate that rumination is consistently associated with increased activities in brain networks involved in self-focused thinking, negative affect, which is defined as a persistent, unpleasant emotional state, such as sadness, anxiety, or irritability. Hey, leftists have all of that. And emotional memory, which governs the recall of emotionally charged experiences. These networks include key brain regions such as the insula, which integrates emotional and bodily awareness, and the anterior cingulate cortex, which plays a central role in emotional regulation and stress monitoring. Yeah, in addition to altering brain networks, focusing on all of this negativity can prolong the body's stress response, keeping cortisol levels elevated for longer periods and increasing inflammatory markers. Over time, this heightened stress response may disrupt critical regions of the brain, such as the prefrontal cortex, which supports decision-making and self-control, and the amygdala, which governs fear and emotional responses. There you go, folks. We have found the solution. These people are focused so much on negativity that they have literally destroyed their brains. And this is why when you talk to a leftist, they can't be reasoned with. They can't be brought out of their funk because they physically have gotten rid of any positives and positive thinking and positive pushes through their brains. They've gotten rid of it all. And this is why they're not only so damn stupid, but they can't even see the truth or the reality, if it's a positive reality, right in front of their freaking face. They just can't. So there you go. And these findings also suggest, by the way, that chronic complaining does not help resolve problems. Instead, it trains the brain to fixate on that distress and self-focused emotions, making it harder to regulate their feelings, solve problems effectively, and cope adaptively. This is why leftists never solve anything. This is ridiculous. I mean, come on. Yeah. By the way, rumination, according to them, according to researchers, is not merely overthinking, because what it does is it biases attention, drawing focus toward negative information while pulling attention away from positive experiences. So there you go. There's more in this Epic Health piece, but yeah, I just wanted to just point that out. Oh, yes, they've finally done it. And hey, before I take off, the very last thing I want to say, you know how the U.S. Education Department, they and Biden administration put in what they called the SAVE plan? Well, guess what? About 7.5 million enrollees in the Biden administration's now defunct SAVE plan, they just were notified by the U.S. Education Department that those student loans are back on, that they need to be repaid. They have to enroll into a legal repayment plan. So, the leftists, there's a win. There's another win. The leftists are going to go nuts once this really hits. They started notifying those 7.5 million borrowers yesterday of all of this. So, yeah. If you were a leftist lunatic who thought that your student loans are gone, yeah. If you're one of the 7.5 million, not so. Alrighty, folks, that is it for me for this evening. Do me a favor, if you haven't already, head on over to rumble.com, get yourself an account. It is free. And once you are signed up and signed in, make sure that you search up the American Perspective channel and hit that green follow button to get notified every time that I go live. Also, too, don't forget to give me a thumbs up, thumbs down, or a thumb sideways if you're 3 Chevy across all of my platforms, whether it's X, Facebook, YouTube, or, of course, the aforementioned Rumble. We will see you Monday, 5 p.m. Pacific, 8 p.m. Eastern Time, right here on American Perspective. Have a great rest of your evening, and good night, everybody.